The footy's been great. We just need to get the officials out of the way.
Yeah.
Geez, it'd be great if you could talk about the footy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Hopefully after Magic Round we can. Now, the sin bin saga continues tonight with Titans coach Des Hasler hitting out at the NRL, denying his team is the most penalised in the competition. Take a look.
Des, you're the most penalised team in the competition for high tackles. What do you make of that?
Yes, it's an interesting stat, but it doesn't mean it's correct. and upon consultation, it might appeal at that. I can assure you it's not correct. So for Andrew to say that there has been a crackdown is wrong. And it seems like all of a sudden that, we're going to move the goalposts, which is not a clear response. Why are we moving the goalposts all of a sudden? I don't think coming out and changing all this now, moving the goalposts, I think it's not being honest with the integrity of the game.
Mm. Are you deflecting though after 4 losses and a couple of?
Oh no, we'll take full responsibility of the 4 losses. So don't say that. I never said that. You said that.
Oh, I said, are you?
No.
The great Des Hasler tees off at the NRL. He said the NRL are moving the goalposts, and
I don't think they're moving the goalposts. I think they're clamping down. And last night when we saw the stats, I must have been reading the wrong ones because the Titans were leading the comp, weren't they? We showed it here.
Well, they've had the most head-eye tackles in the game, but he's saying they haven't. But the stats lie.
Is he alluding to other teams get away with them?
Well, that's the point. That's the point. When you put those figures up last night, you can read them 2 ways. Yeah, the Titans are on top, but as we all know, we're seeing some that are being penalised that shouldn't be penalties, and some that are getting missed from other teams. That changes the landscape. And there's no question in the world, in the last month we've seen a change, Gordon. You can't deny the goalposts have changed in the last month.
It was the line that was sort of trotted out by Andrew Abdo on his PR charm offensive yesterday. Like, he spoke to everybody. And I remember talking to Andrew earlier in the day, and he made the point that, head-high tackles are significantly more at this point of the season than last year. But you're right, the counter-argument to that is that they're calling more and more head-high tackles when they actually aren't. So I'm less concerned about them calling head-high tackles as the inconsistency of when they're calling them from game to game, from official to official. I think that's the thing that we're all worried about heading into Magic Round, that we're just going to have the repeat of what we saw in 21, and that's the last thing the game needs.
We're actually sitting arguing over the force. Oh, well, it wasn't hard, but isn't it, if you hit him in the head, you hit him in the head?
But it's the fairness of it, Gordy. You showed last night the Tupanua knee in the head, right? Yes. There's no excuse in the world that the bunker missed that. Everyone that watches that game sees that happen. And the injustice and the unfairness of it, and even though it was the same team that got lost to a tackle later, is that you look at the tackle of Montoya, it doesn't warrant a sin bin if Tupanua's doesn't, and there's no way in the world they miss that. You can't miss that. The Burton one in the same game. Yeah. The Burton one, when they called up the game and showed that and put him on report, yet they didn't send him to the sin bin. How the hell is that not sin bin if we're seeing all these other ones that are sin binned? In the South Sydney game, there was a crusher tackle. That's head contact. Mamazoulis was on the ground. I think it was Trent Liero did the tackle. He's sitting there, he's holding his neck. No penalty. It's the fairness of it all. There's no fairness at the moment.
To be fair, Abdo come on last night, admitted they got it wrong, and said there will be immediate change. So as much as, I agree with you, Crawls. They've been getting it wrong. I do question the no crackdown by the NRL, and I think Desi's right there. There's been a crackdown. Because the players haven't changed the way that they play that much for the amount of penalties that have been given, sin bins and reports and you name it. So they're definitely refereeing differently too, and I mentioned that to Andrew last night. It's not just the bunker, but they are giving more head-eye penalties that shouldn't be, and there's definitely more sin bins that shouldn't be. Full
credit to Abdo to be able to say that, to admit that they got it wrong. What I'm interested in is what he said in all his interviews yesterday is how much reach the bunker's going to have during Magic Round. Is it going to go back and pull up, indiscretions from earlier in the set? That's going to be the interesting thing because he seems to think that threshold, as he was calling it, needs to be lifted, and that's going to be interesting to see in Magic Round just where that threshold's at.
Yeah.
The referees are always going to push the envelope. I think we're missing the point. If they change the technique of all the players and they get hit in the head less, there's going to be less penalties.
You're big on this, Gordy, aren't you? Because the last couple of nights I felt that you think the players have got to take more responsibility.
Yeah, I think tackling technique's really poor. That volley comes in, and there's Hazelton runs. He's got his rib cage open, and he stands up and hits him in the head.
That's a one-off, Gordon.
No,
you can't pin this back on the coaches and the players and tackling technique. I'll tell you what.
Okay, so where do they learn to tackle?
A year ago, I wrote a
where do you learn
story.
to tackle?
Hang on a second. Last June, I wrote a story. Bennett, there was so much frustration in the game. Bennett couldn't bite his tongue anymore. He rang me up and he wanted to do a story about it because he was so fed up and everyone in the game was so fed up. He came up with some really great ideas, right? At the end of the season, they sat Wayne down, they sat Ivan Cleary and Ricky Stewart, and they came up with a plan. Well, guess what? They didn't bring the plan into play. And we're a year down the track and it hasn't got better, mate. It has got worse. They came up with a plan that perhaps could have fixed the sin bin problem that we have at the moment, while still punishing high tackles. They ignored it. Andrew Abdo said last night, we might look at it at the end of the year. They looked at it at the end of last year and they trialled it in a trial. They spoke about putting regular people in the bunker, right? 4 regular people that could be there every week to try and get some consistency. Never happened.
Never happened.
Never happened, mate.
Now they're
that's
using
the
referees who
disappointing
have
thing as a
refereed during the
game.
round.
Because this could have been sorted out, or at least we would be on the right track. But to me and to many, many fans out there, mate, they
when
feel
I
like it's gone backwards.
It used to get penalised if you gave away a penalty. It was taboo. Now I reckon you're coached to give away penalties. That's why 6 to go to come in. They don't care how many penalties they go.
Do you really believe the high tackles is coached into it? I would suggest,
they bend their back better?
But I would suggest, mate, on the try line, they're coached to give away penalties and slow down the game and that sort of stuff. They probably don't care. But I wouldn't say the only active foul play last week.
I'll challenge every coach to come down the park and run and I hit him in the head.
The only
seriously,
deliberate active foul play I saw last week was the knee in the head.
Right?
Great.
And I'll hit him in the head and I say, man, I'm sorry, I just slipped, mate, it's up. And just see whether they like it. And I don't think that they would. I didn't like it when I played. And now you see them all getting hit in the head and they just run, bend your back.
I've spoken to a lot of coaches on the point I think it's a lot of factors: the speed of the game, the surface, the interpretation, all that. But I agree with you, Gordy, because I've been writing this for a few years. Because you talk to coaches about it, that they think that the two defenders coming in up high, that's a big part of it. So let me ask you this then: what do you say to those? And the great Mick Cronin has been a proponent of this for a long time. 2 in the tackle.
I don't mind it, but.
I don't know why we don't even trial that. Why we don't even consider that?
Because the athletes got
because
the athletes got too good.
Got too big.
Too big and too strong.
That would take a while for players to get used to it. So that's not an off-season thing. That's a whole different dynamic.
That's changing the game in many respects. The size of the players.
That's changing an under-15s.
The interchange and everything else comes in.
Sorry for having an idea.
No, it's a valid idea.
If it's good enough for Mick Cronin, it's good enough for me.
It's a really valid idea.
You're allowed to have an opinion on this show.
Well, mate, because it was one-on-one, right? And then in my era, the play the balls got so quick, so it had to be 2 in a tackle. And now the play the balls didn't slow down, so now there's 3 just to slow it down. So
you wouldn't have as many ruck infringements, I would think, either. Though.
And the leg tackle wasn't getting rewarded.
Get rid of the 6 to go, which is so subjective anyway.
The
2 in the tackle.
It's not just fans that are blowing up, though. The immortal Joey. He was filthy, wasn't he? And that was well reported and on TV and all that.
Yeah.
But he put the headset down, didn't he?
Yeah, I wrote that in the Australian yesterday. He with 20. Look at that head.
But
Jesus.
Payne has a 6'5".
Yeah.
And I reckon I'm bigger than Curran, and he hits him in the head.
Well, so that was a send-off, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I thought it showed.
Why is that tackle in there?
But this story in terms of Joey, it just shows, people give Joey have different opinions on Joey. I love the fact that he's so unfiltered and is such a fan of the game that he could not call the last 23 minutes of that match for Channel 9. He just put his microphone down because after the bowl. When it got to Golden Point, they tried to engage him. He said, "I hope there's no head highs," and then said nothing for the rest of the game. To me, that just sums up the the frustration, particularly from former players, about what's going on in the game.
It's not just former players, though. It's the fans too. You look at any online story that talks about the crackdown or the sin bins at the moment, and the majority of fans feel so frustrated, Gordy. And this is what the game can't ignore, because people love rugby league. Like, you know what? Your friends will say, "Oh, I won't watch the footy next week." They're always back on watching the footy because they love rugby league. It's their life, mate.
But this one with
they still care.
That was
they really
the worst
care.
of the 18. That was the dumbest one out of the weekend.
That was a shock.
You know, it just sort of put an exclamation point on the weekend.
Yeah,
really.
That's a creature of habit.
Yeah, but that's
that's
not
what
a
he's
sin
trained
bin.
to do.
That's not even a penalty, though, is it?
No, if it's a penalty, it's only just. It's definitely.
Why does he hit him in the head?
Oh, you
Because
went
he's trying
over
to wrap
that,
up the
mate.
ball, isn't he?
You're right. Look, he got him high. And he has got his ribs cage there to hit.
Oh,
but the fact of
that
the
has got
matter
to be
is,
play-
mate,
come on, that's
it's
play
not
on.
a sin bin, Gordy.
Hey,
It has
that's play
never
on,
been a
isn't it?
sin bin.
Get 10 of those a game. As I said, just go down the park, just get someone just to keep on hitting you in the head.
Do you want to do it now?
Let's go.
Yeah, we'll do it on the desk.
It's most annoying.